Hey guys, and welcome back. Tonight we journey into one of history's greatest illusions, the cozy, romantic medieval castle. We picture roaring fires, warm tapestries, and nobles feasting in comfort. But the truth is, a castle was a monster of stone, its breath a constant killing cold. It was a fortress designed to keep enemies out, but in doing so, it trapped the damp and the winter chill within its very bones. You are not a knight or a lord. You are a servant inside this stone beast, a chamberlain. And your job is not to fight wars with men, but to fight a desperate losing war with winter itself, one shivering night at a time. So before the Great Hall fire begins to die, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past. As always, it is a pleasure to see where you are all listening from, so let me know in the comments. Alright, find your warmest blanket. Listen to the wind outside your own window, and let us step back in time. The day is dying. You stand your watch from a high, narrow airing slit in the western tower, a privileged vantage point that no one else desires. From here, you have an unobstructed view of the enemy's advance. The sun, a weak and distant wafer of pale gold that has offered no warmth today, finally surrenders to the horizon, bleeding a final, pathetic smear of orange and purple across a sky the color of old iron. Below, the frozen fields and skeletal trees of the forest are swallowed by a creeping, deep blue shadow. This is not the gentle arrival of twilight. It is an invasion. This is the moment the monster wakes. You feel it first as a change in pressure. The air inside the stone tower, already cold, seems to grow heavier, denser, as if the castle itself has taken a slow, deep breath. Then comes the long, nightly exhalation. A palpable wave of cold, so profound it feels ancient. It is a cold born in the deep quarry stones of the foundation, a chill that has been lurking in the massive walls for months, patiently waiting for the sun's weak resistance to fail. Now, it radiates outwards from every surface, a physical force pushing against your woolen tunic, seeking out the scandalous, unnatural warmth of your living body. The air grows thick with a dampness that clings to your clothes and seems to settle deep in your lungs. You know from bitter experience that this damp will find its way into everything. The flour in the kitchens, the rushes on the floor, the bones of old men. The sounds of the day have been extinguished one by one. The rhythmic, ringing clang of the blacksmith's hammer is silent. The distant shouts of the stablemaster and the chatter of the laundry maids by the frozen well are gone. What is left is a vast, echoing quiet, a silence that amplifies the voice of your true enemy, the wind. It is your oldest and most intimate foe. You have learned its many voices. There is the low, mournful moan it makes as it passes over the battlements, a sound of immense, lonely spaces. Then there is the high-pitched, piercing shriek it reserves for the sharp corners of the tower, a sound like a hunting bird. And finally, the most unnerving sound of all, the violent, percussive rattle it makes on the heavy wooden shutters. A frantic, angry drumming, as if something outside is demanding to be let in. Your work begins now, while there is still a sliver of light to see by. As Chamberlain, the comfort, and by extension, the health and good humor of your lord, Sir Robert and his family, is your sole responsibility. A child's cough in the morning, the lady's complaint of stiff joints, the lord's foul, irritable temper, all can be traced back to a failure in your command during the night's long war. You turn from the arrow slit, away from the dying world, and face the growing darkness of the castle's interior. The torch you carry, pulled from an iron sconce on the wall, seems to struggle against the darkness, its flame a small, brave, but ultimately doomed little soldier. The shadows it casts are huge and distorted, making the familiar corridor seem like the gullet of some enormous, sleeping beast. You see your own breath plume before you, a thick white cloud, a ghost of your own life force being stolen by the room. Your mind, sharpened by years of this struggle, is a ledger of vulnerabilities, a map of the castle's weaknesses. You think of the great hall, of the immense, greedy chimney that devours heat and gives back only smoke. You think of the solar and the specific tapestry depicting the fall of man that hangs against the north-facing wall. It is the thickest, and you must ensure it has not been disturbed, for that wall weeps with damp. You think of the firewood supply. Did the boys bring up the dry oak as you commanded, or did they bring the greener ash that will hiss and smoke and draw a complaint from the lady about her delicate throat? You think of the rushes on the floor. Are they still dry, or has the damp turned them into a cold, sodden mat that will only make the room colder? You are not merely a servant. You are a tactician, an engineer of comfort in an environment designed for defense. You understand that this fortress was not built to nurture life. It was built to withstand death from the outside. In doing so, it has created a perfect environment for a different kind of death to flourish on the inside. The slow, creeping, inexorable death by cold. You reach the bottom of the winding stone staircase. The air is even colder here, pooled in the lower levels. You stand for a moment before the great arched entrance to the main hall, gathering your resolve. You can already feel the cavernous cold that waits within. Your first major engagement of the evening is about to begin, the lighting of the great fire. It is a purely symbolic gesture, you know, a raising of the battle standard, a defiant roar against the inevitable, but it is a necessary one. It is a declaration to the monster of stone and the howling wind that for one more night you will not surrender. You take a deep breath, the icy air stinging your lungs, and prepare to face the beast. You step into the great hall, and the cold deepens, taking on a vast, echoing quality. It is a cavern of man-made winter. The air is utterly still, heavy, and so cold it seems to have a weight of its own. Your torch flame, which seemed so brave in the narrow confines of the corridor, now looks like a pitiful, flickering star in an immense black sky. The hall's high, timbered ceiling, with its massive oak beams, is completely lost to the darkness above. A realm of spiders and shadow, the stone flagstones stretch away from you, a floor of ice, the thin, trodden rushes offering no comfort, only a faint, musty smell of straw and damp. The silence here is a physical presence. It is not the peaceful quiet of a church. It is the dead, heavy silence of the tomb, a silence that swallows sound whole. You give a sharp, commanding clap, and the sound, unnaturally loud, cracks through the silence and echoes back from the distant walls. It is the signal. From the shadows near the main entrance, a team of 4 young servants appears, their faces already pinched and red with the cold they have endured in the courtyard. They move with a weary reluctance, their bodies hunched, their breath appearing in thick white plumes. Your first command is for the wood, the pile from the west wall, you order, your voice sharp. The driest oak. Thomas, you choose the logs. I want no green wood, no hissing, smoking logs tonight. The lady's throat is delicate. As servants move to the enormous woodpile stacked just inside the great doors, a chaotic mountain of logs, branches, and split timbers. This is the castle's lifeblood, a fortress of fuel against the siege of winter. But you see, with a practiced, anxious eye, that the pile is smaller than it should be for this point in the season. Each log represents a victory against the cold, but also a depletion of a finite and precious resource. Under your stern gaze, the work begins. It is brutal physical labor. The logs are heavy, some as thick as a man's thigh, and slick with frozen sap. The servants grunt and strain, their young muscles trembling with the effort, their bare feet shuffling on the cold, rush-strewn floor. You direct them with the precision of a master builder constructing a pyre. The two great oaks at the back, flat on the andirons, you command, pointing. They will form the bed of coals that must last until morning. Leave a hand's breadth between them for the air to draw. The boys heave the massive logs into place with a deep, echoing thump that seems to shake the floor. Now the ash, you continue, crisscrossed atop the oak. It will be the kindling for the giants beneath. They work for nearly half an hour, their breath coming in ragged, white plumes. They are not just piling wood. They are building a careful, scientific structure under your watchful eye. A foundation of slow-burning oak, a midsection of hotter, faster-burning ash, and finally, a carefully constructed nest of the driest tinder. Wood shavings, dried moss, and the secret weapon, a few pine knots rich with flammable resin. You are not just piling wood. You are constructing an engine designed for a long, slow burn. Finally, the structure is complete. The servants step back, their duty done. The hall falls silent once more. This next part of the ritual is yours alone. You take the torch from the wall sconce. You walk to the hearth and kneel upon the cold stone. This is a prayer of sorts. You are about to summon a powerful, dangerous spirit into this hall, and it requires respect. You plunge the torch into the heart of the dry tinder. For a moment, there is only a sizzle and a wisp of gray smoke. Then a small, hesitant flame appears, a flicker of orange in the vast darkness. It licks at a piece of dry moss, catches on a sliver of pine, and then, with a sudden, hungry roar, the fire erupts. A wave of ferocious, almost violent heat washes over you, pushing you back a step. The fire roars up the chimney, a column of pure, furious energy. The great hall is instantly transformed. The oppressive darkness is beaten back to the far corners, replaced by a wild, dancing golden light. The stone walls, the high rafters, the banners of your lord's house hanging limp and cold, all are thrown into dramatic, flickering relief. The fire is a declaration. It is a defiant shout against the silence and the cold. It is beautiful. And it is a lie. You stand in its immediate presence, within the 10-foot circle of its dominion, and the heat is a glorious, life-giving heat. But then you deliberately walk 20 paces back. The heat vanishes instantly. The icy drafts are still there, swirling around your ankles. The stone floor is just as cold. The fire is now just a distant, angry painting. You look up at the great, black opening of the chimney. It is a greedy mouth, a hole in the sky that devours the best of the fire's warmth and spews it uselessly out into the night sky. The smoke is not clean, it's thick and greasy. It stings the eyes and coats the rafters above with a black, sticky tar over the years. This fire is a tyrant that you must serve all night, a beast that demands constant tribute for a very small circle of comfort. The fire is lit. The standard is raised, but the war is far from over. You await the arrival of the household, each to take their designated place in the unforgiving hierarchy of warmth. The great fire, now a roaring, established beast, has done its work. It has not warmed the hall, but it has cleansed it of the deepest, tomb-like chill and filled it with a flickering, theatrical light. It has transformed the vast, empty cavern into a stage. Now, the actors arrive to play their nightly parts. They enter not as a single group, but in waves, a living tide that demonstrates the unyielding structure of this world. First come the lowest, the grooms and stable hands, who smell faintly of horse and cold leather. The scullery maids, their hands permanently red and raw. The men-at-arms, their leather jacks stiff with cold from their watch on the battlements. They do not approach the fire. They know, without ever being told, that its heat is not for them. They move like ghosts along the shadowed walls to the far end of the hall, taking their places on the long, backless trestle benches. They huddle together, their shoulders hunched, a miserable flock seeking what little warmth they can find in shared proximity. Next come the senior members of the household, a more confident stream of humanity. The steward, the captain of the guard, the castle priest. They are permitted to walk through the hall's center, passing closer to the fire. You watch them, and you see the subtle, practiced dance they perform. The steward pauses to speak to the knight nearest the dais, turning his body so his back can soak in the radiant heat for a precious half-minute. The priest makes the sign of the cross as he passes the hearth, a gesture of piety that also allows him to linger for a moment in its glow. Finally, a hush falls over the hall. Sir Robert, your lord, enters, and the room contracts around him. He is followed by his wife, Lady Eleanor, wrapped in a magnificent mantle of dark sable fur. Behind them, their two children, bundled and flushed, are herded by a stern nursemaid. As they walk towards the hearth, everyone in the hall rises to their feet. You step forward and bow. My lord, the meal is prepared. He nods and leads his family to the high table. And here, in the geography of the evening meal, the rigid hierarchy of this world is made brutally clear. The currency of this hierarchy is warmth. The high table sits on a raised dais, perfectly situated within the golden circle of the fire's effective heat. Here, winter is held at bay. Sir Robert unclasps his heavy cloak, a gesture of comfort no one else can make. Lady Eleanor's pale cheeks gain a rosy color. The wolfhounds at their feet sigh contentedly, their bellies turned toward the flames. You direct the service. Platters arrive at the high table, steaming. A whole roasted swan, its feathers reattached. A great meat pie releasing a fragrant cloud. You pour hot, spiced wine into their silver goblets. Their entire world, for this hour, is one of warmth, steam, and spice. You glance down the length of the hall. The knight's table receives food that is warm but not hot. They eat with their cloaks on. Further down, at the servants' trestles, the fire is a distant, flickering star. Their pottage is lukewarm, their ale icy. They eat with a grim, silent efficiency, taking on calories as a defense against the cold. You understand this system perfectly. A man's worth is measured by his proximity to the fire. You are the architect of this unequal ecosystem of comfort and misery. And as the meal ends and the household scatters, you know that this grand performance is merely the prelude. The real work of keeping the lord and lady alive through the night is yet to begin. The meal concludes, not with a sense of satisfied leisure, but with a shared, unspoken urgency to disperse before the cold can reclaim the great hall entirely. The men-at-arms and lesser servants vanish quickly into the shadows, heading for their cold barracks and colder sleeping pallets, taking their meager warmth with them. Sir Robert pushes his chair back with a scraping sound that echoes in the cavernous space. He turns to you, his face still flushed from the fire and the wine. "The solar, Chamberlain," he says, his voice a low rumble. The lady feels a chill. "It is the command you have been waiting for." You bow your head. "At once, my lord." To move from the great hall to the adjoining solar, the lord's private sitting room, is to journey between two different worlds. You leave the roaring, chaotic, and smoky island of the fire's influence and step into a corridor of pure, silent cold. The change is immediate and brutal. The air here is a physical presence, heavy and still, and so frigid it feels like walking through water. The torch you carry seems to sputter in protest, its small flame casting a small, lonely circle on the massive, unadorned stone walls. The sound of your own footsteps is all you can hear. This is the true nature of the castle, a dead, frozen beast, and the warmth of the Great Hall is merely a fleeting illusion you help to create every night. Your destination is the solar, a chamber directly above a section of the kitchens. A small mercy of architectural planning, that means the floor is merely cold, not glacially freezing. But it is still a room of stone. As you push open the heavy oak door, the cold inside rushes out to greet you. It is a dank, musty cold, different from the clean, sharp cold of the outdoors. It is the deep, ancient chill of trapped winter. Your first duty here is not to create warmth, but to defend against the cold that is already here. Your weapons are not fire and iron, but rushes and wool. You begin with the floor. The stone flags are vast, gray, and radiate a cold that feels as if it rises from the very center of the earth. The first line of defense is the rushes. You kneel and run your hand through them. They are a thick, springy layer of dried reeds and river grass, laid down weeks ago. You crush a handful, and a faint, sweet scent of dried meadowsweet and lavender, woven in with the rushes when they were laid, rises into the air. It is a ghost of summer, a deliberate scent designed to combat the pervasive medieval smell of damp, smoke, and unwashed bodies. You inspect the layer, searching for the telltale signs of decay. These rushes are still dry. They will serve for another week. On top of this humble, fragrant foundation lies the room's greatest luxury for the feet, a woolen rug from the lands of the East. Its colors are faded, its patterns of strange birds and geometric shapes muted and soft. You walk its perimeter, smoothing its edges. This rug is an island of safety. With the floor secured, you turn your attention to the true enemy, the walls. The great stone walls are the monster's skin, and they are ice to the touch. Your primary weapon against them is the set of 3 enormous tapestries that adorn the room. To a guest, they are a display of wealth. To you, they are technology. They are the castle's armor against its own cold skin. You approach the largest, which hangs against the north-facing wall. It depicts a hunt in a lush green forest. It is a woven lie, a beautiful fantasy of a summer world hung against the grim gray reality of your winter prison. You place your palm flat against the tapestry. The wool is thick and heavy. Even through this dense barrier, you can feel the profound, radiating cold of the stone behind it. It is a living cold, a presence that is constantly trying to suck the heat from the room. The tapestry is the shield that holds it back. Your task is to inspect this shield. You walk its length, your torch held high. You find a small frayed tear where a careless servant must have snagged it. It is a tiny breach, but you know that a draft will find it. You make a mental note to have it repaired tomorrow. You find a spot where one of the iron hanging rings has slipped from its hook, causing the tapestry to sag. You stand on a small stool, and with cold, numbed fingers, you lift the heavy fabric and reseal the hook. The breach is closed. Finally, you address the windows. They are narrow slits covered by thick, ill-fitting wooden shutters. You take a heavy bolt of undyed wool and direct the servant Thomas to hang it over the entire window assembly. The heavy fabric immediately muffles the high-pitched whistle of the wind. The fabric defenses are now in place. The room is still cold, but it is no longer a raw, open cave. It is a padded cell, a fortress of wool and weave. You have created a buffer between your lord and the monster's touch. It is a small, vital first step in the long campaign of the night. The fabric defenses are in place. The solar is now a padded, muffled cell, a fortress of wool and weave against the endless siege of the cold. But a fortress without a garrison is just a well-decorated tomb. The room is still frigid, the air heavy and dead. The time has come to bring in the fire, to introduce the living, breathing heart that will make this space a sanctuary. You turn to the small fireplace that is built into the far wall of the chamber. It is a more modest affair than the great beast in the hall, designed for intimacy rather than spectacle. "Thomas," you say to the young servant, who is still shivering by the door. "The fire. Use the ash logs we brought up. They will burn hot and quickly. The goal is to chase the worst of the chill from the room before the Lord arrives. We do not need it to last the night." The boy nods, his relief at having a task to warm him palpable. He kneels at the hearth and begins his work with a practiced hand. Soon, a cheerful, crackling fire is alive, its flames smaller and more disciplined than the wild inferno in the great hall. It is a domestic animal, not a monster. Its light dances on the woven figures of the tapestries, making the long-dead hunters seem to move in the flickering gloom. The fire begins to attack the cold in the room. But it is a small soldier fighting a vast army. It's not enough. For true, focused comfort, you require your champion, your elite weapon. "Go to the kitchens," you say to Thomas, your voice low and urgent. "Tell cook I need the bronze brazier for the solar. It is to be filled with the best oak charcoal from the heart of the oven fires. It must be glowing red, with no black spots, no smoke. Tell him it's for the lady, and he will understand the urgency. Take John with you." It is too heavy for one. The boy hurries off. While he is gone, you strategically arrange the heavy oak chairs and a small table, creating an intimate space near the hearth. You are designing a thermal landscape. The boys return, carrying the brazier. It is a magnificent object, a heavy bowl of hammered bronze standing on 3 ornate clawed feet, filled with a mound of glowing charcoal. There are no flames, only a deep, pulsing internal red like the heart of a slumbering dragon. A powerful, shimmering wave of dry heat radiates from it. It is a captured, portable sun. The charcoal is a refined, expensive fuel, made to burn hot and long with very little smoke. You direct the servants to place it on the stone flags. The focused, radiant heat pulses outwards, creating a tangible bubble of comfort. It is a miracle, and it is a deadly poison. Your face remains an impassive mask, but your mind is keenly aware of the invisible danger you have just invited into the room. You know the stories of the spirit of the coal, the silent, odorless demon that can steal a man's breath. It is your most solemn duty as Chamberlain to protect your lord and lady from this threat. Your final act of preparation is a paradox. You walk to the great wooden shutter you so carefully sealed. You unlatch it and pull it open just a tiny crack, no wider than your thumb. An immediate, sharp spear of winter air lances into the room. Thomas looks at you, confused. You do not explain that you are fighting the castle's chaotic drafts by creating a single, disciplined one. This tiny leak will create a gentle circulation, allowing the brazier's invisible poison to be drawn towards the fireplace chimney. You are making the room survivable. You stand back and survey your work. The fire crackles. The brazier pulses with its silent, deadly heat. The tapestries stand guard, and the small, secret whisper of cold from the window is the only thing that makes it all safe. You have created a perfect, delicate, and dangerous equilibrium. The sanctuary is ready. The Lord and his lady have settled into the solar. The fire crackles. The brazier pulses with its silent heat. and the room has become a small, civilized island in the vast, cold ocean of the castle. For a time, your work is done. You stand a silent shadow near the door, ready for the next command. An hour passes. They speak of the day's events, of a letter from the lady's cousin, of a problem with a tenant farmer. You listen with half an ear. Your mind is already on the next and final battlefield of the night, the bedchamber. Finally, Sir Robert drains the last of his wine and stands. "The hour is late," he announces. "Chamberlain, see to the bed." This is the summons you have been waiting for. You bow, take up your torch, and leave the relative comfort of the solar, plunging once more into the frigid darkness of the corridors. The journey to the bedchamber is a climb into the deepest cold. It is located high in the main tower, a position chosen for defense, not for comfort. The winding stone staircase is a narrow tunnel of chilling drafts, the wind howling through the arrow slits with a lonely, predatory voice. Here, the cold is more intense, more aggressive. The higher you climb, the further you are from the great hall's fire, and the closer you are to the winter sky. You reach the heavy, iron-strapped oak door of the bedchamber and push it open. Stepping inside is like stepping into a cave of ice. This is the very heart of the castle's coldness. The vast room is a cube of sweating, weeping stone. The air is so frigid it stings your throat and makes your eyes water. The flame of your torch gutters and shrinks, its light struggling to push back the oppressive, absolute darkness. In the center of the room stands the great bed, a colossal structure of carved oak. It looks less like a piece of furniture and more like a dark, silent mausoleum waiting for its occupants. It is the centerpiece of this stone tomb. The room is large, but sparsely furnished. A single wooden chest for clothes, 2 heavy chairs. The stone walls are mostly bare, with only one lonely-looking tapestry hanging on the wall opposite the bed, a feeble defense against the immense, radiating cold of the tower. You can see your breath not just as a puff, but as a thick, lingering cloud, a ghost of your own life force being stolen by the room. The walls themselves are weeping. A fine, glistening sheen of condensation covers their surface, and you can see delicate, feathery patterns of frost tracing the edges of the window shutters and sparkling on the iron nailheads of the door. You stand there, surveying the grim reality of the chamber. The fire has yet to be lit. The bed is a cold tomb, and your masters will be here in less than an hour, expecting a sanctuary. You take a deep, stinging breath of the icy air and turn to the young servant, Thomas, who is shivering violently by the gore. "The fire, Thomas," you command, and then run to the kitchens. Tell cook the master requires the great brass warming pan. Tell him the night is a cruel one. While he is gone, you begin the preliminary skirmish yourself. You move to the bedchamber's fireplace, and using a flint and steel, you bring a small, modest fire to life. It is a pitifully small victory against the vast cold, but it is a start. The fire you have brought to life in the bedchamber's hearth is a small, brave soldier, but it is not enough to win the war. It pushes back the darkness in its immediate vicinity, casting a cheerful, dancing light on the cold stone, but its heat is a feeble gesture against the room's profound, bone-deep chill. You need heavy artillery. You need to attack the cold at its very heart, the bed itself. The servant boy, Thomas, returns, his face flushed a deep, mottled red from the heat of the kitchens and the exertion of carrying the heavy, glowing tool. He carries the great brass warming pan. It is the single most advanced piece of heating technology in the entire castle. The pan itself is a heavy, round vessel of polished brass, as wide as a small shield. its surface glowing with a soft, warm luster in the firelight. Its hinged lid is a masterpiece of metalwork, pierced with an intricate pattern of suns, stars, and swirling floral motifs. Designs meant not just for beauty, but to allow the heat to escape in a controlled, even manner. It is attached to a long, dark handle of polished oak, worn smooth and dark from generations of use by chamberlains before you. From within the perforations, a deep, reddish light pulses, and the pan radiates a powerful, silent, and wonderfully dry heat that you can feel on your face from 6 feet away. On the hearthstones, to keep its heat, you instruct. Thomas carefully sets the heavy pan down on the stone before the fire. Your first task is to deconstruct the bed, to open the cold fortress so you can attack its heart. You walk to the great bed, and with a grunt of effort, pull back the heavy wool fur coverlet. The air trapped beneath it is frigid. You fold back the 4 heavy woolen blankets, one by one. Finally, you are left with the 2 fine, white linen sheets. As you touch the top sheet to fold it back, the cold is so sharp and intense, it feels like a burn. Now, you say to Thomas, your voice a low, serious murmur. The battle begins. You take the warming pan by its long handle. You lift the top sheet and slide the heavy, glowing pan inside. The moment the hot brass touches the icy, damp linen, the room is filled with a loud, sharp hiss. A great puff of white steam erupts from the bed, smelling faintly of lavender and hot metal. Thomas jumps back, startled. You do not flinch. It is the sound of the enemy being engaged. It is the sound of the cold dying. And now the slow, methodical dance begins. You cannot let the pan rest for even a second. To do so would mean a brown, ugly scorch mark on the priceless linen, a failure that would earn you a week's wages docked and the lady's fury for a month. You must keep it in constant, sweeping motion. You push the pan up to the head of the bed, then pull it back down towards the foot. You move it from the left side to the right. Your movements are slow, graceful, and repetitive, like a priest making a ritual offering. It is exhausting work. The pan is heavy, your arms ache, and you can feel a sheen of sweat on your brow, even in the freezing room. But your focus is absolute. You're not just warming a bed, you are performing a delicate, skilled craft. You are an alchemist, using fire and brass to transmute the essence of winter into the promise of a comfortable sleep. For 15 minutes, this silent, focused work continues. You have banished the cold from its stronghold. The sheets. Finally, the ritual is complete. You slowly, carefully, slide the heavy brass pan out from between the sheets. Its glow seems a little dimmer now, its great heat given over to the bed. A gentle, welcoming vapor rises from the entire surface of the linen. The bed, once the coldest object in the room, is now the only truly warm and inviting place within it. You have won the night's most important battle. The ritual of the warming pan is complete. A fragile, man-made warmth now radiates from the heart of the great bed, a defiant heat that steams gently in the frigid air of the chamber. But this warmth is a fleeting spirit, a ghost that will vanish in moments if it is not captured and protected. The cold air of the chamber, a relentless predator, is already pressing in, seeking to reclaim the territory you have won. Your next task is to build the defenses. You must construct a nest, a fortress of fabric and fur, so dense and so intelligently layered that the fragile warmth can survive the long siege of the night. You signal to the young servant, Thomas, who has been watching your work with a look of reverent awe. Now we build the nest, you say, your voice low and instructive, a master teaching his apprentice a vital craft. The battle is not won with a single weapon. We have warmed the ground. Now, we build the walls of the fortress. You begin with the foundation. At the very bottom, resting on the hard wooden slats of the bed frame, is the palliasse. It is a simple, humble thing. A massive sack of tough canvas, stuffed to bursting with clean, dry oat straw. You press down on it, hearing the faint rustle and smelling the faint, sweet scent of a long-vanished summer field. A stark and beautiful contrast to the damp, cold smell of the stone room. The palliasse is firm, a solid base that provides the first layer of insulation from the drafts that swirl beneath the bed. On top of this rustic soul of the bed lies its aristocratic heart, the feather bed. It is an object of almost obscene luxury, a testament to your lord's wealth. It is another massive mattress, even thicker than the palliasse, but it is filled not with straw, but with the soft, downy feathers of 1,000 geese. It takes both you and Thomas to lift it and shake it out, a process that fills the air with a few stray, swirling downy feathers. You explain to Thomas without words, by gesture alone, that this is the Lord's personal cloud, a barrier designed to separate his noble body from the hard reality of the world. But it is also a masterful piece of technology. The countless feathers trap 1,000,000 tiny pockets of air, creating a thick, light, and incredibly effective layer of insulation. To sleep on a feather bed is to float on a cushion of trapped warmth. With the foundation laid, you begin to build the walls of the nest. You smooth the fine, warmed top sheet over the feather bed. Its stark whiteness, a canvas upon which you will now layer your defenses. Each blanket is a different soldier, you murmur to Thomas, continuing your lesson. Each has its own purpose. Pay attention. You take the first blanket. It is a heavy, thick sheet of undyed wool, a color the shepherds call russet. It is rough and scratchy to the touch. This is the foot soldier, you say, laying it over the sheet. It is not for comfort. Its weave is dense and tight. Its job is to form the first thick wall, to trap the heat rising from the warmed linen and not let it escape. Next, you retrieve a blanket of deep blue, dyed with expensive woad. It is finer, the wool softer. This is the night, you continue. It adds another layer of warmth, but it is also a comfort, softer to the touch, should my lord's hand encounter it in the night. It fights and soothes at the same time. You lay it over the first, and then you add a third, a patterned blanket of red and brown checks. Then a fourth, even finer one. You work with a quiet, focused precision, a general arranging his battle lines. You and Thomas stand on opposite sides of the great bed, pulling each layer taut, smoothing out every single wrinkle with the flats of your hands. A wrinkle is a weakness, you explain to the boy. It is a valley where the cold can gather, a gap in the line. The defenses must be perfect, without flaw. Finally, it is time to deploy your champion, the final, ultimate armor. You gesture to the great wooden chest that sits at the foot of the bed. Together, you and Thomas lift the heavy lid. Inside, folded carefully, is the fur coverlet. You lift it out. It is a magnificent, enormous thing, made from the pelts of 3 or 4 great northern wolves, stitched together with thick leather thread by the castle's saddler. It is incredibly heavy. The fur is deep gray and black, and breathtakingly soft. It still carries a faint, wild animal scent, a primal smell of the forest and the snow. You lay this massive weight of fur over the layers of wool blankets. It settles with a soft whoomp, its heaviness compressing the layers beneath, creating a dense, almost airtight seal. The thick fur is the final shield, an almost impenetrable barrier against the cold air of the room. It is a piece of the wild, tamed and turned into a defense against the savagery of the winter. You stand back and survey your work. It is no longer a bed. It is a layered, technological marvel of survival. It is a fortress of straw, feathers, wool, and fur. It is a deep, soft, warm burrow, ready to receive its noble occupants. You turn down the top edge of the fur and blankets in a final, formal gesture of invitation. The physical construction of the nest is complete. But one final crucial act remains to turn it from a warm fortress into a true sanctuary. You stand back from the great bed, your arms aching from the effort of arranging its many heavy layers. The work is a masterpiece of thermal defense. But as you take a breath, the air that fills your lungs is still the same sharp, icy air of the chamber. The bed is warm, but it is an island of warmth in a vast, freezing ocean. An unprotected island. The cold air of the chamber, a relentless predator, was already pressing in, seeking to reclaim the territory you have won. The nest is not enough. You must now build the fortress around it. Your attention turns to the very structure of the bed itself. It is more than furniture. It is a piece of architecture. 4 massive posts of carved oak, as thick as a young tree, rise from the corners, supporting a solid wooden roof, the canopy, high above the mattress. It is a room in miniature, a house within a house. And now you must raise its walls. The walls are not of stone or wood, but of a substance far more precious and effective at capturing warmth: fabric. You walk to the head of the bed, to the point where the first of the great curtains is tied back against the oaken post with a thick, tasseled cord. This is the final and most crucial piece of technology in your arsenal. You untie the cord and take the edge of the curtain in your hand. The material is a deep crimson velvet, a fabric so impossibly expensive that the cost of these curtains alone could purchase a small farm with all its livestock. The velvet is thick with a deep plush pile that seems to drink the faint torchlight, making it appear almost black in the gloom. It is incredibly heavy. You can feel the substantial weight of the weave, a testament to its density. This is not for show, it is for survival. You turn the edge over in your hand and feel the lining, a second layer of thick, undyed wool, stitched to the back of the velvet to double its insulating power. This is not a curtain. This is a wall. With a grunt of effort, you begin to pull the first great curtain from the head of the bed across its width. The large, heavy iron rings it hangs from screech and groan as they scrape along the thick iron rod of the canopy frame. The sound is loud and jarring in the silent chamber. As the curtain moves, it unfurls like a great banner, a solid wall of crimson and shadow that begins the process of enclosing the bed. You move to the foot of the bed and draw the second curtain to meet the first. Now, the 2 long sides of the bed are sealed. The light from the fireplace is blocked from one side, and the space around the bed grows noticeably darker and more intimate. Next, you move to the long open side of the bed that faces the room. There are 2 curtains here, meeting in the middle. You take the first one, pulling its heavy, silent weight across half the distance. More light is extinguished. The bed is now a 3-walled chamber, a dark alcove of fabric. Finally, you take the last curtain. You pull it shut, its edge overlapping with the previous one, ensuring there is no gap. The last of the direct light from the fire is now gone. The bed has vanished. In its place stands a silent, imposing fabric monolith. It is a great dark cube of velvet, a room within a room, a tent pitched in the heart of the frozen chamber. Its presence is absolute. It is a fortress of textile, sealed and silent. You stand before it and hold your hand up near the seam where 2 of the curtains meet. You can feel no draft. The heavy, overlapping fabric has created a near-perfect seal. You understand the science of this sanctuary in a practical, profound way. You know that inside this fabric tent, the body heat from 2 sleeping people will have nowhere to go. it will be trapped, slowly warming the small pocket of air inside. The moisture from their breath will also be trapped, raising the humidity and making the air feel warmer and less sharp than the cold, dry air of the room outside. Within an hour, the world inside that curtained space will be a completely different climate. It is a self-sustaining microclimate powered only by the life force of its occupants. It is a man-made womb, a return to the most basic and essential form of shelter. You have done it. You have used every piece of technology and knowledge at your disposal. Straw, feathers, wool, fur, and finally, the architectural genius of the curtained bed to create a space where sleep and therefore life is possible. You stand back, the sanctuary complete, the fortress sealed, awaiting the arrival of its occupants. The bell from the solar rings, a thin, sharp sound that cuts through the quiet of the upper corridors. It is the signal you have been waiting for. Your lord and lady are ready to retire. You give the bedchamber one last inspection. The fire in the hearth is burning steadily. The tools for the night are laid out, and the great, silent, curtained bed stands like a promise in the center of the room. You are as ready as you can be. They arrive moments later. To see them walk from the solar to the bedchamber is to witness the power of the cold firsthand. They leave one room, made tolerable by your efforts, and walk no more than 30 paces down a stone corridor. Yet, they arrive looking as though they have just crossed a frozen moor. Lady Eleanor has pulled her sable-lined mantle so tightly around her that only her pale, pinched face is visible. Sir Robert's jaw is set, his breath pluming before him. Their eyes immediately fix upon the two sources of hope in the room, the bright, crackling fire in the hearth, and the dark, silent promise of the bed. They hurry towards the fireplace, and you perform the final ritual of the waking day. From a small table near the hearth, you retrieve a silver ewer of heated, spiced hippocras. It is a final, internal defense against the cold. They take the goblets, cupping them in their hands, absorbing the heat as they sip the sweet, potent liquid. After a brief prayer from the lady, the moment of greatest vulnerability arrives. They must shed their warm outer robes to get into bed. It is a swift, almost panicked action. They drop their heavy robes onto the wooden chest, and for a few brief, vulnerable seconds, they stand only in their thin linen chemises, their skin exposed to the freezing air. This is your cue. You move to the side of the great bed and pull back one of the heavy, crimson velvet curtains. Holding it open like the flap of a tent, you are the gatekeeper to the only truly safe place in the entire castle. As they scurry from the fireside and slip past you into the dark, warm interior of the bed, a wave of heat, trapped and held by the warming pan, escapes into the room. It smells of warm linen, lavender, and the faint, clean scent of the goose feathers. It is the smell of pure, unadulterated luxury. You hear the rustle of the straw palliasse and the deep sigh of the featherbed as they settle into its depths. You hear Lady Eleanor give a soft murmur of contentment as her feet touch the warmed sheets. It is the sound of your success. "Draw the curtain, Chamberlain." Sir Robert's muffled voice commands from within the darkness. You do as you are told, pulling the final heavy curtain shut. Its edge overlaps with the other, and with a soft, final thump, the world is sealed away. The great bed is now a silent, motionless, crimson monolith. The lord and lady are gone. Entombed in the fragile cocoon you have built for them, from within the muffled depths, you hear the Lord's voice, already thick with sleep. See to the fire. Do not let it die. It is your final order of the day. It is the beginning of your long night's work. You stand alone in the cold, firelit room, a sentinel left to guard the fragile cocoon of your master's sleep. Their comfort, their health, their very survival through the freezing darkness rests entirely on your tired shoulders and your ability to keep a single, hungry fire alive until the dawn. The final curtain has been drawn. The Lord and Lady are sealed away in their fragile cocoon of warmth and darkness, their soft, muffled murmurs a distant and fading sound. The fire in the hearth crackles, a lonely soldier standing watch. The wind howls its mournful song against the stone, and you, the chamberlain, are left alone in the vast, freezing emptiness of the chamber, your duty to them momentarily complete. Now, you must face the long vigil of your own night. You stand for a moment before the great, silent, crimson monolith of their bed. It is a world unto itself. You imagine the reality within that fabric fortress, the gentle, accumulating warmth from their own bodies, the soft, yielding mountain of the feather bed, the complete and total insulation from all drafts, the peaceful descent into deep, oblivious sleep. They are as safe and warm as it is possible for any human to be in the heart of a medieval winter. Their world is a soft, warm dream. Your world is the cold, hard reality of the stone floor. You turn away from their sanctuary and walk to the corner of the room that has been designated as yours. There is no carved oak bed frame here. There is no mountain of feathers and fur. There is only a simple, rolled-up pallet leaning against the wall. You untie the cord that binds it and unroll it onto the flagstones. The sound it makes is a dry, pathetic rustle. It is a thin sack of coarse burlap, barely 3 inches thick, stuffed with straw that has long since been compressed by the weight of your body, night after night. It smells faintly of dry dust and your own weary body. This is your bed. Your choice of location is a matter of grim strategy. You place your pallet on the floor near the fireplace, but not so near that a stray spark could ignite your meager bedding. It must be close enough that you can tend the fire without making too much noise, and it must be far enough from the great bed to afford your masters their privacy and status. You are a dog sleeping at the foot of your master's throne. Your bedding consists of a single blanket. It is not the fine, dyed wool from their bed. It is russet, a coarse, scratchy, and functional wool. Its natural brown color, a testament to its humble origins. It is thin from years of use, and in the firelight, you can see the faint outlines of the patches where it has been mended. This single, threadbare sheet of wool is your only shield against the night. Your preparations for sleep are simple and swift. There is no ceremony here. You do not have a nightshirt. You simply remove your outer woolen tunic, the garment that marks your office, and fold it neatly to serve as a makeshift pillow. You remain in your linen undertunic and brace. You might wrap a strip of wool cloth around your head, a crude nightcap to stop the heat from escaping. Then you lie down. The moment your body touches the pallet, the cold strikes. It is a shocking, invasive force that seems to surge up from the center of the earth, through the stone, through the thin layer of straw, and into your flesh. It is a deep, aching cold that makes your muscles seize and your bones feel as though they are turning to ice. You pull the single thin blanket over you, wrapping it as tightly as you can, tucking the edges under your body to create a seal. You curl into the tightest possible ball, your knees drawn up to your chest, a desperate attempt to create the smallest possible pocket of air for your own meager body heat to warm. It is a pathetic, shivering imitation of the great, warm cocoon you built for your lord. You close your eyes, but you are not insulated from the world as they are. You are exposed to everything. You hear every single sound, the howl of the wind, the spit and crackle of the fire, the distant cry of the watchman, the scuttling of a mouse behind the arras. These sounds are your companions for the night. You are a sentry. Your sleep is not rest. It is a state of low-level vigilance. You know you will have to get up in 2 hours, then 2 hours after that. Your night is a series of short, cold naps, punctuated by the duty of keeping the fire and, by extension, your masters, alive. You stare into the darkness, listening to the wind and the fire, and you accept the grim reality of your station. For them, sleep is a luxury. For you, it is a brief, guarded respite in a long, cold war. You lie on your pallet, a lonely island in a vast, cold sea of stone and shadow. Sleep is not a state of rest. It is a shallow, guarded country you can only visit for brief, fleeting moments. Your body craves oblivion, but a part of your mind, a vigilant sentry, remains on duty, its attention fixed on the only other living thing in the room, the fire. As the last of the embers in the hearth begin to fade, the room loses its one source of light and motion. It settles into a profound darkness, and in that darkness, the other enemy makes its presence known, the wind. It is not a simple sound. It is a language, a terrible and complex symphony of violence that you have learned to interpret over many long, sleepless nights. You can hear its different voices, and you know what each one means. First, there is the deep, foundational moan. It is a sound that seems to come from the world itself. It is the voice of the great mass of wind moving unimpeded across the frozen plains and through the skeletal, ice-sheathed trees of the forest. It is a sound of immense scale, of vast, empty, and desolate spaces. It speaks of the utter indifference of nature. Then there is the howl. This is the sound the wind makes when it strikes the castle's defenses. As the great, moving river of air smashes against the flat, unyielding curtain walls and the solid mass of the towers, its low moan is torn apart, breaking into a deep, guttural howl. It is the roar of a great beast enraged, a sound of pure, frustrated power. You can feel the vibration of it through the stone floor, a low, constant thrumming that seems to make your very bones resonate with the storm outside. But the most personal and unnerving voices are the shrieks. These are the sounds of the wind finding the castle's weaknesses. When the gale funnels through a narrow arrow slit high on the tower, its voice is compressed and accelerated, rising to a high-pitched, piercing shriek that cuts through the deeper howl. It sounds like a soul in torment. And then there is the physical assault. The wind is not content to sing its terrible song. It wants in. You hear it as a sudden, violent thump, thump, thump against the heavy wooden shutters. It is a physical blow, as if a giant is outside, beating on the wood with its fists. The iron latches groan under the strain. The wind's spies are the drafts. They are its invisible soldiers, already inside the walls. Even wrapped in your thin blanket, you can feel them. A tiny, persistent stream of icy air that finds a way through a crack in the floorboards and touches the back of your neck. It is a cold so pure and sharp, it feels like a needle. You shift your position, curling tighter, trying to escape these probing, ghostly fingers. This constant, multi-layered assault is a form of psychological warfare. It frays your nerves. It fuels a sense of isolation and vulnerability. In the lulls between gusts, your exhausted mind plays tricks on you. Did you just hear a footstep in the corridor, or was it just the wind? You lie there, a prisoner in a fortress under siege by an invisible, tireless, and malevolent army. The fire in the hearth is your only small defiant light against the immense, roaring darkness of the wind's power. You are a creature of the long night, a man who lives by the life cycle of a fire. As the hours bleed into one another, your own sense of self begins to dissolve, and you become little more than an extension of the hearth, a servant to its every need. The world outside the chamber, the castle, the kingdom, the sun itself, ceases to exist. Your entire universe is this cold stone room, and the fragile, demanding life that pulses within it. You are woken, perhaps an hour later, perhaps two. Time has no meaning in this darkness, by a subtle change in the room's atmosphere. It is not a sound that wakes you, but the absence of one. The cheerful, crackling voice of the fire has fallen silent, and with its silence, the cold, which has been a constant, oppressive pressure, has now deepened into a sharp, actively hostile presence. It feels as though a warm hand has been lifted from your face, exposing you to the full, biting chill of the chamber. Your body, even in its exhausted state, knows what this means. The fire is dying. The act of waking is an agony. The meager warmth you had managed to accumulate in your thin blanket has dissipated. A deep, aching cold has settled into your joints, making your limbs feel heavy and stiff, like frozen wood. To leave the relative shelter of your blanket now is to willingly plunge yourself into a sea of ice. Every instinct screams at you to stay put, but you cannot. The Lord's final command, "Do not let it die," echoes in your mind. With a silent groan that is felt rather than heard, you force your stiff body to move. You creep silently across the stone floor, your bare feet recoiling from the icy surface. You kneel at the hearth. The fire is just a bed of sullen red embers. You take the iron poker and gently stir the coals, gathering the hottest ones together. You select a small, dry log from your precious nightly ration. You place it carefully onto the coals. You pick up the bellows. The leather is stiff and cold. You kneel on the hearthstones and begin to pump, your movements slow and steady. A soft wheezing sound fills the room. You pump gently, steadily, breathing life back into the dying embers. A tiny, hesitant flame flickers to life. You continue to pump, your movements steady and practiced. The flame grows, and with a soft whoosh, the log catches fire. You have won the skirmish. This entire ritual is repeated twice more throughout the long, dark expanse of the night. Each time you are pulled from your shallow sleep, you feel colder and more tired than before. The brief snatches of rest are not enough to restore you. In these waking moments, you are the only one truly conscious in the room. You hear the deep, rhythmic breathing of your Lord from within the great curtain bed. You hear the distant cry of the sentry on the battlements, 4 of the clock, and all is well. The words are a bitter joke. All is not well. The enemy is inside, and you are fighting it alone. The night has entered its deepest and most unforgiving phase. You have tended the fire for the last time, feeding it the final, pitiful log from your nightly ration. It is a small fire, a fragile life, and you know it will not last long. There is no more fuel to give it. There is only the waiting. You abandon your straw pallet on the floor. It offers no comfort now. Your only hope for any warmth at all is the hearth itself. You huddle on the cold hearthstones, as close to the small, sputtering fire as you dare. This is the hour of the wolf, that dead space in the heart of the night, when the world seems to have stopped turning, when the dawn feels like a forgotten rumor from another lifetime. The cold in the chamber changes. The air is so still and so intensely frigid that it feels brittle, like thin glass. The dampness in the room has now condensed on the stone walls, creating a thin, glistening layer of interior frost. The inside of the room is beginning to look like the outside, The monster has breached the final defenses. You drift into a state that is not sleep, but a deep, weary trance. And then, after an eternity, you notice a change. A pale, ghostly, polygon and utterly colorless light begins to seep through the cracks in the window shutters. And in your exhausted, delirious mind, a single impossible thought blossoms. Dawn. The night is over. You have survived. A wave of profound, almost painful relief washes over you. You struggle to your feet and stumble towards the window, eager for the first sight of your savior. You press your eye to the small crack. You look out, and your hope turns to ash in your mouth. The sky is a deep, clear, star-dusted indigo. A full, brilliant moon is high in the sky. It's cold. Dead light pouring down onto a landscape of white, frozen snow. It is the false dawn, a cruel, beautiful lie. The realization is a physical blow, more brutal than the cold itself. This isn't the end of the night. This is its coldest, most bitter heart. This dead, silvery light offers no comfort, no warmth, no hope. It serves only to illuminate the full, frozen misery of your prison. You turn from the window, your shoulders slumping in defeat. You look at the hearth. The fire is gone. All that remains is a small, gray pile of ash with a single, defiant ember winking at its center. A dying red eye that mocks you before it, too, fades to black. You do not have the energy to rebuild it. You have no more fuel. You huddle on the hearthstones, a shivering figure in the ghostly moonlight, and you watch. You watch the frost creep further across the floor. You watch the last ember in the hearth die. You are a captain who has gone down with his ship, left to drift alone in a silent, frozen sea, waiting for a dawn that may never come. The first true dawn comes, not as a glorious sunrise, but as a slow, grudging retreat of the darkness. The ghostly silver moonlight thins, replaced by a deep, bruised purple in the sliver of sky visible through the shutter crack. This new light brings no warmth. It is a purely visual phenomenon that serves only to illuminate the frozen chamber in a new, harsh, unforgiving light, revealing the frost on the walls in stark detail. The dawn does not bring relief. It brings work. With a groan that seems to come from the very center of your being, you begin the agonizing process of moving. Your body is a single massive ache, your joints stiff as rusted iron. You are no longer the lonely sentry of the night. You must now become the efficient chamberlain of the morning, and your first duty is the most crucial of all. You must resurrect the fire from its grave. You kneel before the cold hearth, a grave of cold gray ash. You scoop the ashes into a wooden bucket with your bare, numb hands. When the hearthstone is clean, the true challenge begins. You have no embers to nurse. You must start from nothing. You take out your tinderbox. Your hands are so cold and stiff that your movements are clumsy. You strike the flint against the steel. A shower of bright orange sparks flies out, dying instantly. You strike again, and again. Finally, on the fifth try, a single, lucky spark lands directly on the char cloth. It does not burst into flame. A tiny, red-orange spark appears on the black fabric and begins to glow, spreading slowly like a single drop of blood on a dark cloth. It is alive. You cup the precious, glowing cloth in your hands, protecting it. You bring it to your mouth and blow on it, a gentle, steady stream of your own warm breath. The glow brightens. You transfer the glowing char cloth to a small, carefully prepared nest of the driest tinder, wood shavings and moss. The tinder begins to smoke, a thick, acrid smell. You continue to blow, your vision blurring from the smoke and the exertion. And then, with a soft, magical woof, a tiny yellow flame springs into being. It is a miracle, a new day's first, most important birth. You nurture this tiny flame with the desperate tenderness of a father shielding his newborn child. You feed it the smallest, driest slivers of kindling. You watch it grow, watch it strengthen, watch it begin to dance with a confident, cheerful energy. Only when it has grown into a small, stable blaze do you begin to add larger logs. The fire you build now is not the cautious, rationed fire of your nightly vigil. It is a roaring, almost defiant blaze. Its purpose is no longer merely survival. It is a performance. It is a declaration of power and comfort for your waking Lord. Its roar fills the chamber, a triumphant sound that finally drives back the oppressive silence of the night. You stand before it, exhausted, filthy with soot, and aching with cold. But you have completed your first and most important duty. You have brought fire back from the dead. The fire you have brought back from the dead is now a roaring, confident blaze. It has chased the deepest chill from the room and prepared the stage for the waking of your masters. The night is officially over, defeated not by the sun, but by your own relentless, exhausting labor. You are no longer just a sentry. You are the high priest of the morning's first, most important ritual. The time has come to wake your lord and lady. The ritual is governed by an unwritten and unforgiving set of rules. You wait until you can hear the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer, the signal that the castle's working day has begun. You walk to the great, curtained bed. It stands as a silent, crimson monolith. You stand a few feet away and announce yourself, your voice formal and clear. My lord, the sun is risen, the fire is lit. You wait for the muffled grunt from within. Enter. You take the edge of the heavy velvet curtain and pull it back. The iron rings scrape loudly, a harsh intrusion. A thick, warm, humid wave of air billows out from the enclosed bed. It smells intensely of sleep, of warm skin and lavender. This warm, moist air hits the freezing, smoky atmosphere of the chamber and condenses, creating a visible, swirling mist. It is like opening a portal between two different worlds. Inside, you see your lord and lady buried in a deep nest of disheveled furs and blankets. They are peaceful, oblivious to the war you have fought on their behalf. As the cold air of the room rushes into their sanctuary, Sir Robert stirs, groaning as he is pulled from his paradise back into the reality of his castle. The servant boy, Thomas, is waiting with a steaming silver ewer. Your first act of service is to take it and pour a goblet of hot, spiced wine. You offer this to the Lord as he sits up, a bribe to ease the pain of waking. His eyes, still bleary, immediately go to the fireplace. He sees the roaring fire you have built. He gives a small, almost imperceptible nod of approval. Your all-night vigil is judged and approved in that single, silent glance. His mood for the day, and therefore the mood of the entire castle, will be a tolerable one. The fortress of the bed has been breached. The fragile cocoon is open. The inhabitants have been delivered safely through the night. Your most difficult and lonely work is over, but your long day of visible active service has just begun. Your lord, Sir Robert, sits propped against the pillows, the silver goblet of hot wine warming his hands. Lady Eleanor is stirring beside him. The bed, while still warm, is no longer a sealed sanctuary. The cold of the room is beginning to seep in. The next logical and urgent step is to get them dressed. This is a formidable challenge in the freezing room. You direct Thomas to the great wooden chest where the Lord's garments are stored. He lays them out, a pair of fine linen brays, long woolen chausses, a linen undertunic, and a heavy dark blue woolen outer tunic. The clothes are stiff and impossibly, shockingly cold. You take the linen undertunic yourself. You walk to the hearth and hold it up before the roaring fire, turning it slowly. This is a skill of your trade. You must hold it close enough for the fabric to absorb the intense heat, but not so close that a stray spark could scorch the precious linen. You feel the icy stiffness leave the cloth as it becomes soft and pliable in your hands. When it is almost too hot to hold, you turn. My lord. Sir Robert stands from the bed and comes to the fire. The process of dressing is a swift, layered campaign against the cold. First, the warmed linen undertunic. He gives a sigh of satisfaction as the heated fabric touches his skin. Next, the woolen chausses, each one also warmed before the fire, before you help him draw them up. Layer by layer, you are building his personal armor while you are tending to the Lord. The ladies' maids are performing the exact same ritual for her on the other side of the room, their movements a silent, parallel dance to your own. The final garment for the Lord is the heavy wool tunic, its sleeves embroidered with silver thread. You warm this final, heavy layer and help him pull it over his head. You hand him his thick leather belt, and finally, his heavy outer mantle, lined with rabbit fur, and clasped at the shoulder with a large, ornate silver brooch. The man who was shivering in a thin nightshirt just moments ago is gone. In his place stands a lord of the realm, wrapped in a self-contained fortress of warm air, trapped between layers of linen and wool. He is armored. He is ready to face the cold of his own home. You stand back, your duty performed, as he strides confidently towards the door. You have successfully armored your lord and lady against the cold of their own bedchamber. Dressed in their many layers of wool and fur, they are now mobile fortresses of personal warmth, ready to descend and impose their will upon the day. You follow a respectful pace behind them, a silent shadow carrying a single candle to light their way down the treacherous, winding staircase. They are insulated from the chill of the tower by their fine clothes. You are not. You wear your simple chamberlain's tunic, and the stone walls seem to reach out and steal the very warmth from your blood as you pass. As you emerge from the stairwell into the cavernous great hall, you step into a world that is no longer silent, but it is far from cheerful. The castle is waking up, but it is a slow, grim, and painful process, like a great, frozen beast being reluctantly prodded back to life. The air in the hall is a thick, hazy soup of sensations. The great fire you supervised at dawn now roars in the hearth, but its heat is still a localized phenomenon. The rest of the vast space is filled with a damp, bone-deep cold, now mingled with the thick, greasy smoke from the fire and the distant, more appetizing smells of roasting meat and baking bread from the kitchens. The air is alive with the sounds of labor, a discordant symphony of a household at war with the morning. From the courtyard outside, you hear the sharp, percussive crack of an axe splitting wood. It's a desperate, rhythmic sound, the sound of servants trying to get ahead of the fire's insatiable appetite. You hear a deep, racking cough from a guardsman huddled near the fire, his lungs raw from sleeping in the damp, cold air of the barracks all night. You see serving girls with red, chapped hands carrying heavy wooden buckets of water, their faces set in grim lines. You know they had to smash through a thick layer of ice on the well just to get that water. You are the manager of this entire desperate operation. As you walk behind your lord, your eyes are darting everywhere, assessing. You note that the rushes near the main door are becoming sodden from melted snow being tracked in. They will need to be changed tomorrow, a huge task. You are mentally calculating the rate of firewood consumption. Your job is a constant, castle-wide campaign. In stark contrast, Sir Robert strides through this scene of collective misery with an air of command. The cold is an annoyance to him, not a fundamental threat to his existence. He is insulated by his clothes, his status, and by your labor. The castle is awake, but it is a grim, sullen waking. The The sun is up, but its light is a weak, watery thing that offers no warmth, only a clearer view of the frost and the misery. You have gotten your lord through the night, but now you must manage his and the castle's survival through the long, cold day. The day unfolds in a blur of duties, each one a small skirmish in the endless war. You have a tense conference with the castle steward. The woodpile is dangerously low. The woodcutters are suffering from frostbite. The castle is consuming its warmth faster than the frozen forest can provide it. You direct the lady's maids to move her heavy weaving loom across the solar, a laborious task to chase a single patch of weak sunlight for an hour. You find a moment of respite in the kitchens, a sweaty, chaotic hell that is the only truly warm place in the fortress, and you feel a pang of envy for the cooks, who, though of low status, are not cold. As soon as the midday meal is cleared, your mind is already on the coming night. You are in the courtyard, overseeing the splitting of the next day's logs. The preparation for the nightly battle begins hours before the sun even considers setting. There is a profound futility to it all. You are not making progress. You are simply holding the line. You are Sisyphus, but your boulder is a mountain of firewood, and your hill is an endless winter night. As dusk begins to fall, you find yourself, without conscious thought, back at the same arrow slit in the western tower where this story began. You watch the same weak sun surrender to the same cold horizon. You feel the same familiar chill as the castle exhales its icy breath. Nothing has changed. A full day of exhausting, constant labor has brought you back to the precise beginning of your struggle. The endless cycle is about to repeat. And here, in this endless, repeating cycle of cold and duty, we leave him. A silent, weary guardian, forever standing watch against a foe that can never be defeated. As his story fades into the stone and smoke of the past, we find ourselves returned to the quiet comfort of our own modern nights. Perhaps now, we can take a moment to appreciate the profound and silent magic of our own time. Think of the small, unassuming box on your wall. The thermostat. A thing of such quiet and absolute power that a medieval lord would have considered it a holy relic, a miracle of the highest order. The chamberlain fought an all-night, life-or-death battle to keep a single room from freezing. You can change the temperature of your entire home with the touch of a single finger. The greatest luxury is not a fur blanket, a four-poster bed, or even a roaring fire. The greatest luxury is the absence of the struggle. It is the quiet, almost inaudible click of a furnace kicking on in the night, a sound of such profound peace and security that it is a comfort beyond the wildest dreams of our tired, cold chamberlain. And now, it is time to appreciate that small, quiet miracle. The luxury of a long and unbroken and warm sleep. Time to be thankful for the warmth that comes without a battle. Time to sleep.